Hello again, good morning, and thanks for staying with us. This is NewDay from TV3. Alright, our next topic is the social block, and we're looking at the issue of our forest reserves. So, we're told that Ghana's forest cover is being depleted at an alarming rate of 65,000 hectares per annum. It is estimated the country will lose all its forest cover in the next 23 years if measures are not taken to reverse the trend. I beg your pardon. Peter Kwao Adato has been following developments at the country's ecological system and has compiled the following report.
Ghana's total forest cover, which stood at 8.2 million hectares, about 34% of the total land area at the turn of the last century, has decreased to 1.6 million hectares. The rate of deforestation is estimated at 65,000 hectares per annum. The alarming rate of depletion is blamed on inappropriate farming methods, hunting or poaching, human settlement and galamsey activities. Bad farming practice alone claims up to 15 million cubic meters of forest annually, whilst illegal logging destroys about 5 million cubic meters of forest cover per year. Currently, over 80% of the total land area, which was originally covered with humid tropical forest, has been degraded.
We can see the effect. The doom soil is not anybody's fault. It's as a result of we relying on hydro, which comes from water and it comes from rains, and we are not getting rains because all of us, we have contributed in cutting down the trees and vegetation around, and that is the result. So we believe that if proper education or the education get down to every individual, then we can achieve something.
The degraded forest and dwindling timber resources have been noted as the key challenge. The Forestry Commission, through the National Red Plus Secretariat, is leading the implementation of global climate change mitigation mechanism known as Red Plus, with support from the Forest Carbon Partnership Facility of the World Bank.
We've said that the Forestry Commission cannot do it alone. We need the active participation of the chiefs, landowners, and the communities living around this forest estate, law enforcement agencies, the police, the military. We need also the active cooperation of the judiciary to give very deterrent penalties so that people will be discouraged in committing these offenses.
Reduced emissions from deforestation and forest degradation, or REDD+, is one of the most controversial issues in the climate change debate. The program aims at rewarding government, companies or forest owners in the south for keeping their forest instead of cutting them down.
It is not going to be like before when we have done our normal planting. What Red Plus seeks to do is to incentivize the people who are going to do conservation activities. So if within a particular landscape you are able to prove that you have reduced carbon emissions by say 400 tons, the price of carbon at that time will be multiplied by that 400 tons, and then that is the reward for that landscape. Within ourselves, if you have a forest where there's a water source, if you protect that forest, you are protecting your watersheds, and these are some of the core benefits that we are actually hammering on now.
The Ghana Red Plus Gender Sub-Working Group, among other things, is recommending appropriate and sustainable alternative livelihood programs and interventions for local communities.
Alright, so there certainly are some benefits if we are able to conserve our forest areas, but unfortunately the activities of almost everybody and some unscrupulous persons is causing the country to lose its forest cover. And in here with me to discuss this issue a little longer is Dr. Richard Jima. He is the Managing Director, Timber Validation Department of the Forestry Commission. He's on my extreme right. And then also Kwame Eje, he's Assistant Manager, Climate Change Unit of the Forestry Commission. And they are here to help us walk through, they are going to help us walk through the forests to see how best we can reserve or conserve this particular blessing that God has given us as a country and then also as a continent by extension. Good morning, gentlemen, and thank you very much for your time. But to start with, what is causing these this alarming rate of depletion?
Okay.
What are the specifics?
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. And first of all, let me say good morning to all your viewers, all your cherished viewers, and also to convey the gratitude of the Chief Executive of the Forestry Commission, Mr. Samuel Afaridate, for this opportunity. So basically, we try to understand this issue by looking at what is directly driving deforestation and what are the underlying factors. So the main direct drivers of deforestation in Ghana has to do with bad farming practices, usually the slash and burn method, where large areas of forests are harvested and replaced with farming products. The second direct cause of deforestation in Ghana is illegal logging, where people illegally harvest trees and for their selfish economic interest. And also illegal mining also contributes to deforestation in Ghana. We also have urbanization, where areas hitherto occupied by forests are harvested and then replaced with buildings. Wildfires also contribute directly to deforestation in Ghana. But underpinning these drivers are what is termed the underlying drivers. And the first category of underlying driver to deforestation is population increase. So as our population expands, we have more people seeking to sort of get products from the forest, like wood for their roofing and for their furniture. And that puts a lot of stress on forest resources. Another underlying driver of deforestation is lack of appreciation of the value of forest. So people don't really appreciate what the forest can do. They have limited understanding of the many benefits that forests give to mankind. Forests protect our watershed, our water resources, and the sources of all the key rivers in Ghana, which supplies water to all of us, come from our forest reserves. So if you destroy our forest bodies, we lose so many things, including our water bodies. Forests also help even in promoting agriculture, because the sort of soil fertility which forests provide help in driving agricultural productivity. So these two are the key underlying drivers which underpin the major causes of deforestation in Ghana.
There seems to be a thin line between destruction of the forest lands or clearing of the forest lands for the sake of development. We'll come to that, but you mentioned illegal logging as one of the factors causing us to lose our forest reserve. But I'd want to come to you, Doc. What is legal logging? If we have illegal logging, there then should be legal logging, and what is that, and how does that play in this discussion?
Okay, thank you very much. Once again, good morning to you and your cherished listeners. I believe, like you rightly said, once we have illegal logging, then it means we have legal logging. Legal logging, to put it simply, it's doing logging the right way. That is following the laws, the regulations that have been put in place by a nation, Ghana, to harvest timber. And so if you do anything contrary to what the law says, then you are doing illegal logging. For instance, you've been asked to take 5 trees from the forest, and you go and take 10 trees. It's illegal logging. You don't have a permit or an authority to take timber from the forest, and you do that, it's illegal logging. You are not allowed to encroach on the forest for any other thing, and you use your own will to enter into the forest, do farms, do whatever, go and do galamsey, like you rightly said. That is also called illegal logging. Because these are all the illegalities that can lead to illegal logging. That's wrongfully taken from the forest, what you should not do as prescribed by law.
Do you have, as part of the documentation for someone to have before they undertake a legal logging process, that they need to plant X number of trees after that? Or what is the agreement between those that just go and cut the trees and the fact that we need to replenish what we lose as a result of the logging?
I think that's a very good one, but it's important for us to put it in perspective, like what is actually the forest policy saying as far as taking from the forest and replacing the forest. Now, when you look at our revised forest and wildlife policy of the 2012, we've seen that there's a need for people to get access to timber. and at the same time there's a need for us to replace what we take away from the forest. And so the paradigm shift is to take people away from the consumptive use of the forest to one of a non-consumptive use, that people will appreciate the value of the forest, and so that when people get that appreciation, it is not always being taken, but also replacing. And so within the forest policy, one of the main policy objectives is for us to improve upon plantation development. That is, we have to expand our resource base through deliberate planting, because what we have in the natural state is not helping us be able to meet the wood demand. Currently there's a wood deficit, and whenever there's a wood deficit, that is the demand and supply gap, then everything happens, all the illegalities happen. So if you have enough stock, nobody's going to give you problems. And so the paradigm shift now is for us to go into massive plantation development, using the public, using private initiative, using the communities, and even encouraging people to plant trees on their farms, so that we all cultivate the habit of getting trees on our land, so that the resource will be in abundance and there's not going to be a shortage. Supply.
That dovetails into my next question. Where are we going to replant? Is it the places that we cleared that we just have to replant at the same places, or there are special, we need to get to special places where we can now plant for future use? Good.
We have areas that, because over time we have degraded them, because if you trace back the forest policy from 1948 to now, the forest like we used to have, we started by saying about 8.3 million, and now it's 1.6. And he rightly mentioned the issue of population that is also causing these issues. So areas of the forest, some areas have been seriously degraded, and these are the areas that we are going into massive plantation, because we have our own technical measure of defining what an area has been degraded. And so the Forestry Commission have land banks, have identified land banks, categorized the area of degradation, and so we know specifically which areas we ought to plant. And in other areas we have what we call the enrichment plantings. A forest may be standing from afar, you may think it is good, but technically it is not an optimum level. There also you do a deliberate enrichment planting. That is where you plant certain indigenous trees, to complement what is already in the system. So there's a lot of strategic policies that have been put in place to make sure that the degraded areas are bring back to forest. Yes.
All right. Coming back to you, Kwame, there is. How do you juxtapose the fact that yes, we are developing as a country, and because of that we need more infrastructure, and then the fact that we need to clear places for people to put up structures, and then also in the same view of development, we need to put up malls, we need to build roads, general development in terms of infrastructure. How can we help the country not to lose forest cover in the same vein, trying as a country to develop?
Thank you. The focus of this government has been on sustainable development. Even if you want to develop, you have to do it sustainably. Now, one of the reasons that people give for destroying our forest is usually poverty. I'm poor, I need money. And what we usually tell them is that if you are saying you are poor, and because you need money, you have to deforest, then if all the trees are gone, what will you do? So the emphasis of the operations of the Forestry Commission, our ministry and the government, has been that Ghana should focus on sustainable development. Because if we are going to destroy all of our forests, we can have the nice infrastructure, and then we don't have any water to drink because all the forest is gone. So it's always important to strike a fine balance between developing and also maintaining your natural ecosystems. Because as human beings, we require the environment to survive. Without the environment, without forest resources, we cannot survive as human beings. So there is always that clear balance. We are allowed to develop as a nation. People want the good things of life, but we need to maintain our environment in good condition so that we can continually enjoy the benefits of living on this planet.
The argument, you want to add something?
Yeah, and I think to add what Kwame had said, so in trying to drive at sustainable development, that is where the use of technology becomes very, very important. So if on an acre of land people crop to get about 10 tons of maize or whatever food crop, then you can increase the technology in such a way that yields from the very land will increase, so that you don't need to clear a larger land before you get the same quantity of produce that you want. So in sustainable development, you also bring in the dimension of appropriate technology, and so that they go hand in hand, and there's always judicious use of resources, and you don't go and dissipate what you already have in the system.
Well, what is our current percentage in terms of forest reserve that we have as a country? Well, for instance, Ghana's total land mass, you can say maybe 30% of it is purely forest. What is the current percentage? Okay,
currently, technically there are certain areas that we deem forest reserve. That is where the government has complete control. It is gazetted and it is protected. Then we have other areas that is not directly under the government control of the Forest Commission, which we call the off-reserve areas. But there are patches of forests also in the off-reserve areas. But all in all, we have about 282 gazetted forest reserves, and also some other areas outside the forest reserves. And so when you put these areas together, we are close to about 16% of the land mass of Ghana that is under some form of forest protection. But the level of the forest in terms of its goodness varies from one place to the other. But on the whole, if you take the land mass of Ghana, we have about 16% of the land mass under some form of protection, which you can get a good forest cover there.
The issue of development keeps coming up, but you see, a lot of people think that if you say a forest, it's just a place where you have a lot of bush and tall trees and then animals, birds singing in the sky. But what are the other benefits as a country we could have from having a forest, and how can we get people to want to maybe reserve or conserve the forest or the trees that they have near the country?
So forests are very significant, as I mentioned earlier, for life, to make life possible. In fact, if we are talking about enhancing agriculture, we need good soils. If you look at countries north of Ghana, in the Sahara, because they've depleted all their forests, their lands are very dry, and because of that they cannot cultivate any agricultural crops. So you require a good forest cover to be able to have good soils to promote agriculture. And I also indicated that water bodies are protected by our forests. So if we harvest all our forests or trees, we are going to lose water bodies in Ghana, and that will have implications for water supply. In addition, forests provide a good microclimate. In this area where we are having climate change, where temperatures are soaring high, if you have a good forest cover, you realize that the microclimate around the area is very conducive. In fact, research indicates that if you have trees around your building, it's as efficient as using an air conditioner. So you can even save energy by planting trees around your offices and buildings. So forest is a very, very significant resource. Man requires forest in good condition to survive.
To add to what Kwame is saying, normally there's this technical terminology that we use that we call the environmental services. So the forests provide a lot of environmental services. He rightly mentioned protection of our water bodies, giving us good climate. The recent floods that we are seeing, the excessive heat that we are seeing, these are the things that we have to educate the public to know, that if we should have good vegetation around, we are not going to feel the heat of the sun on us daily. Flooding is not going to occur as it is occurring now. Landslides, erosion are going to come to the minimum. Rising of sea levels. These are the things that we want to bring it closer to the people. That is why the revised policy has now emphasized more on the non-consumptive value of the forest. It's not only about timber. It's not only about what we get from the forest, but it is about the ecosystem services that the forest can provide. So we have to intensify our education on that front.
Do we have any beautification projects or tourist attraction things in relation to the forest where people can just take a tour through the forest and enjoy the life forms that we have there?
We do have, currently, if you are familiar with the Mole National Park we have in Damongo in the northern region. It's a beautiful place for tourist attraction. You see the animals in their natural state, the elephants, the baboons, and it's a nice scenery. You come somewhere close to Dodowa. Yeah. We have the Shire Hills where you go, you see the baboons just by the roadside, and we are gradually encouraging people to appreciate these things. Currently, our chief executive is leading a drive of converting the Achimota Park into an international standard ecotourism point of attraction, and we are inviting investors all over to come